Welcome back to another episode of Conversation with Projektor. Today we start with the topic, I care about my content. Before I go, you can contribute topics for this series on my Discord server.
It's much faster when I don't have to do the text-to-speech. I should just teach myself to always properly pronounce the stuff that people say in the chat.
Mary Jane should be capitalized.
Mary Jane, is that capitalized? Is it with an I or is it EA? I'll have to Google this, but I think you might be right in that it's a name. Mary Jane shoes. Scarpe. Rosse, scarpe donne, Spider-Man. Watson. Okay. I think, yeah, it's probably a name. Even though it refers to marijuana here. No, but Mary, not Mary. Yeah, okay, perfect. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect, right? It's not like people are going to complain about the grammars in the text that appear on screen for 2 seconds halfway through a video talking about people smoking weed and something like that. So people aren't really going to care, but it's something that I personally care about. So if I can improve the quality of the content even by a little bit, by just making sure that the grammar is okay and that it's easy to read and stuff like that, I'm pretty sure people would understand even with Mary, lol, just a heads up. Yeah, it's nice that, to be honest, it's very nice having people with me like this, because this is the kind of thing that I would personally never catch. Right? My English grammar is not good enough to know the correct spelling of those kind of words, the words that you use every once in a while in like conversation, because not being a native speaker, I just don't have that ability to recognize those things. Maybe you're not a native speaker either and you're just very good at English or something like that. But I like to believe that my English is pretty good, especially for somebody living in Italy and having done a lot of my English education here in Italy. I would say that it's actually very, very good. But yeah, if I can just improve the content, and if you guys can help improve the content, that would also be nice, of course. And as I said, this is something that I would personally never catch. So I'm very glad that you did. Marie is the French version of the English name Mary and the Latin name Maria. I mean, yeah, if you look at it, it should be the English one. But yeah, having the whole text in English and then one word in French or Italian is probably not exactly what you want. That being said, as I said, it's that last 5%, right? I previously compared it to mastering in music production. Nobody is going to care about that kind of detail. It's just something that you do to make sure that you just have that extra 5%, that it just looks a little bit better. Same with this thing over here, right? The black background. It just makes the text a little bit easier to read. And if it wasn't there, nobody would know. Everybody would look at that and say like, oh, nice, he puts the text on the screen. That's very nice. But if I do it like this, people will see, hey, he puts the text on the screen. That's very nice. If I did this or this, people wouldn't complain about like the text is hard to read or something like that. It's just like, this is a little bit easier to read. You know what I mean?
The importance of reference tracks.
How important are reference tracks to you? When it comes to reference tracks, the way that I mix and write and master my stuff, in the mastering stage, I do use direct referencing, where I reference my music to other music that I like, to see it like at the end, do I actually like where this is going? Do I like the final product that I'm creating? But when I'm producing and when I'm mixing, I don't want to get too influenced by other music. What I do want to do is listen to a lot of Spotify. You can see Spotify is right here next to my DAW. These are all of the programs that I basically use on a daily basis, right? So Spotify is one of them, because every day I like to listen to maybe like half an hour, maybe 45 minutes-ish of other people's music that I like, that I think sounds good, that I think is well mixed, that I think is well mastered, that I think is well written. All of the good stuff that I want in my music, I listen to music that already has that for at least that amount of time, so that I'm tuning my ears to get close in terms of how I should be writing my music. As opposed to directly referencing, you just train your ears before you even get started. And if you do that day in, day out, you don't necessarily need the reference track in the project while you're producing or while you're mixing or while you're mastering. As I said, for the mastering, it is still helpful for me. I like to master with references so that I can check it, essentially. But the main way that people use reference tracks is that when they're producing, they just have a track in the project. I don't do that. I've never really done that, to be honest. I was going to think if I did that before I made psytrance, but even there, I never really produced with like a reference track already in a production project.
What makes a sample or patch good?
I have issues determining what is a good sample or patch. I always go for the cleanest samples rather than the one that fits best.
That's hard to say because it's going to depend exactly on what you need for samples and patches and presets and sounds and that kind of stuff. Honestly, the best actual advice that I can give you that isn't some superficial tip is just continue producing, continue doing more. With experience, you will hear what a good sample is. Most of the videos when people talk about sample selection and that kind of stuff also boil down to the same kind of conclusion. But most tutorials when it comes to sample selection and that kind of stuff, they also boil down to the same advice, in that just use good samples is what they say, and throughout experience you'll actually learn what good samples sound like. There's no such thing as like a tip where it's like, oh, if you need to do a lot of EQing, then it's a bad sample, or if you're need to do a lot of post-processing, then you shouldn't be using the patch that you're using for the melody or whatever. Whatever you need to do to get your idea out there, just do that. To really answer your question, what is a good patch? How do you recognize it? A good patch or sample is the one that encompasses the idea that you want to write musically.
My recently released basstables pack.
That base wavetable pack that you did is 3,000 wavetables?
Yes. All automatically imported into Faceplant. And all automatically rendered out and all... I did not do any manual work there. I made I made the setup that would generate 3,000 sounds for me. And then I did chop it up manually, I guess, and then consolidate it. And then I wrote code that would automatically organize the files for me. And then I wrote another piece of code that would automatically import the sound into Faceplant and turn it into a wavetable for me. It sounds like a large number, but I think I spent less time making this wavetable pack than the actual wavetable pack that I sell, which is just normal wavetables, right? Just for normal everyday sound design. This one over here, I think this one has like 400 wavetables-ish? 350. I think this one took longer than the 3,000 wavetable pack for the base one. It's also more expensive for that reason. It really, the number doesn't really mean much, right? Because I could automate almost every step of the process. You wrote script, right? Yes. It's insane nevertheless. Yeah, it's still, I think, a very cool product. And I hope that people will enjoy it and that they'll improve their basslines by using it. I think the more impressive part is the ideas behind it. The way that I found out about how you can do this and how you can import your processing as a wavetable so that you always have a clean bassline, and then separate the sub bass, and then do all of the tricks and stuff that I did in there. I think that's more impressive than the actual size of the pack. Love how you included the no sub and the clean sub versions, quite handy. Yeah, that's just so that you don't have to do that manually. The clean sub is something that you cannot do if you have the default wavetable. If you have the default wavetable though, inside of something like Serum, you can very quickly remove the fundamental. Still, not having to do that, saving that one step in the process can be an improvement in terms of your workflow. So for that reason, I could as well include it, right? Seeing as well, I was automatically generating stuff, I didn't spend any extra time implementing that feature. Or implementing that it has those variations. I agree, I was thinking I should do it like that too from now on. To be honest, I think a lot of people are still not going to get the idea behind the wavetable pack, in that the wavetable pack really is designed so that you don't do any post-processing on your bassline. And I think people still will do that because people don't know, right? Like they can get the wavetable, but if they then start adding multi-band processing and filtering and excessive EQing, as I said in the video, you can do a little bit of EQing and you will be all right in terms of phase shift. But the main idea is that you don't do any of the processing anymore because the processing is essentially already in the wavetable. So it doesn't really make sense to then process it again because you lose all of the benefits of having a bassline made out of a wavetable to begin with. I don't know, maybe people will realize that that is how it should work. But I think a lot of people will forget why the wavetable pack exists, what the like my reasoning behind it is, and they'll still just apply the processing that they like. But at the end of the day, it's not my job to babysit people throughout the whole baseline creation process. Yeah, as soon as you use the multiband, the purpose dies. That's true, yeah, exactly. At this point, I've created so much content that people should just be able to do that they should be able to just make a baseline, right? If you watch, I am 100% sure that if you watch, study, and understand all of the content that I have created about baselines on my channel, that you will be able to create baselines, I guess, like me. And if you think my baselines are professional, then yeah, that's what you're going to get. You're going, because that's the information that I know, right? I do sometimes feel like when it comes to other people struggling with their baseline, specifically when I do a feedback stream and 99% of the tracks have baselines that just aren't clean, I sometimes still feel like I could be doing more to spread the message on this kind of stuff and how important that is. But for the feedback stream, I do realize that a lot of people use it to showcase music that isn't necessarily finished. So they're not yet at the resampling stage. But also just by talking about resampling that much inside of feedback streams, I realized that there's a lot of people that just simply don't know. That I guess they just do whatever sounds right on their Bluetooth headphones or whatever they use to produce, or their laptop speakers, whatever it is. And they don't actually care about the technicalities. And I think you'll never get to a professional level if you don't do that.
My thoughts on Psylab.
Do you use Psylab at all? I know you use Psyscope from time to time.
I use Psyscope all the time in all of my productions. Do I use Psylab? No. I have opened it. I looked at how the playback worked in there. And for some reason, I couldn't get it to just trigger by MIDI. And then I gave up on it. And I used the demo maybe like half an hour. To me, what is important about a plugin and a software is that when I dive into it, it immediately has to make sense. It immediately has to click with me. If I sit here and I start tweaking the demo for like half an hour of a plugin, and it just doesn't work, it doesn't allow me to get to where I want to go, which in this case was just having it play a kick and bass. For some reason, it just didn't want to do it. I could get it to play by just playback, as in anytime I played back the project, it would sync up and it would play its kick and bass, kind of like the way that Stepping used to do it. Now Stepping is also MIDI triggered, but I just couldn't get it exactly to work. So for that reason, I decided to hell with it. I'll just continue making my kick and bass the way that I've always done it.
I tried it too, but it didn't click for me either.
Yeah, if it doesn't click for you, if it immediately doesn't become intuitive to use, then it for me, I say it like, okay, I'm out. I'm not going to waste any more time on there. Because I do think that my time is valuable. I think everybody thinks that, because we only have so many years. And spending maybe a day experimenting or playing with a software that just doesn't seem to work for you is not a way that I would like to spend my time.
It's not straightforward.
Psylab, yeah, no, it's a difficult plugin. I say plugin, but I believe there's also like a standalone version of it. A lot of those things, those issues that plugins tend to have where they're not intuitive, stem from the fact that sometimes they are also available as a standalone. And for a standalone, you obviously don't have a host for it. So things tend to work in different ways. And it's not like the design often adapts for that, I found.
The issue with switching software.
Have you tried DaVinci Resolve? I have tried it. Didn't grab my attention, or it didn't click with me the way that I want the editor to work. I know I say, like, there's a lot of things that Premiere does wrong, but there are also some things that it does right in their design. It's obviously a software that works well enough for me to do my job in it. The other thing is, as I said before earlier on in the stream, because I edit, or currently I don't do it anymore, but because I used to edit for other YouTubers, I was expected to deliver them with Premiere Pro project files and to collaborate with other editors, send assets back and forth, which are also project files, but full of the edits that you do, so that they can take the edit and then use it in a different video that they are editing, right? Say that you have a certain transition that they want in their video, because maybe it's part of a series or whatever. You send the project over with just the transitions and all of the lower thirds, the text on screen, borders, all of that kind of stuff, the extra graphics that isn't necessarily the footage, but that is still needed for the video. If there's any form of collaboration between people, you're going to be using the industry standard, which in the video editing world is just Adobe, Premiere Pro, and After Effects, and I guess the other one, Audition as well, if you're more into audio editing. So for that reason, I've always stuck with Premiere Pro. It's just the default, the standard that people tend to use, and it's also the one that you'll find the most tutorials on. It's not that you cannot do things in DaVinci Resolve. It's just that since I was working in kind of like the industry, it is easier for me to just stick with the default.
So that's everything for today. I hope that you enjoyed this one. Let me know if you did by leaving a like and making sure that you subscribed. And I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.